First of all, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Saccocio.
It's nice to see you guys.
It's nice to see you too, Mr. Saccocio.
My name is Fred Saccocio Jr. My dad was also Fred Saccocio. I'm an 8th grade social studies teacher, and this is my 29th year at Olsen Central Schools. The reason I decided to become a teacher evolved later after I graduated college, actually. Some teachers I know want to be teachers when they're in elementary school. They picture themselves doing it. I did not. I never gave it a thought, and I went to SUNY Albany and I graduated. I was a political science major. I thought I would be a lawyer. I had 2 brothers that had gone to law school, were lawyers, so I figured I'd do that. I sat even for the LSATs, the law school admission test, and in the process of studying for it, I was completely disinterested in it. I didn't think I wanted to do it, and one of my brothers was honest enough to say, listen, you don't really want to be a lawyer, don't do it. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I ended up in another job that I was grateful for it, but I completely disliked it. I didn't like what I did. It paid okay, had an office. On the outside, it looked like I was doing okay. But I learned fairly quickly in my job that I needed to have meaning in my work. When you think about the pie chart of your life, how much time you spend at work, and I couldn't believe how long like a 50-hour week was. And then you're driving there and you're driving home. So I got to like my job, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I worked there for a year, but in the process, I was very interested in trying to find out what I want to do. What am I called to? And I could say it was a chance thing, but I think it was more than that. You know, I'm a very spiritual person. On the radio, I was driving in a car during a work day, and a teacher came on, and his name was Guy Dowd, and he's from Brainerd, Minnesota. And he was 1986 National Teacher of the Year, which means that he's like, you know, a recognized teacher as the best teacher, you know, in the whole country. And he went to the White House. He was very, you know, well known and honored. And he gave a talk. I think the audience was some youth leaders and some aspiring teachers, and it sounded like maybe there was 100 of them in the room. And he talked about his life as a teacher, and it was riveting. It was so entertaining, and he talked about his students and the lives that they have and the needs they have, and some of it was humorous, some of it was just gut-wrenching, some of it was just tear-jerking, and he just said, I'm an English teacher, but he goes, but I teach kids. And when they come in the room, it's Jennifer, and it's Kayla, and it's Hailee, you know, and it's Steven, and it's Kyle, you know. And I was so moved. I just drove around, you know, and when it was done, I was like, I think I may have just found what I wanted to do. But I had no teaching courses, no education courses, and it stayed with me, that talk, and I called up the only person I knew as a teacher. It was Mrs. Galelli, who taught here. I graduated high school with her. And I said, you're a teacher, and she got a job right out of college. How do you like it? And she loved it, and she was just gushing, you know, the impact she feels she's making. And I'm like, this might be it. So she invited me to come in to observe another teacher. It just so happens that the teacher I observed, I ended up student teaching with him. I saw him like 2 weeks ago. We had a nice little reunion. And I observed his classroom, and he was just a gentleman, wonderful teacher, calm. But I was in his classroom, just kitty corner from this classroom in this building. And I was trying to picture myself being up there, and I could envision it. And like the rapport he had with the kids, I was almost jealous of. I'd like to have that. And so I left that day, and I think I got it. You know, I stumbled on it, but I think I know what I want to do. And it was a lie to go back. I had to go get a master's, I do student teaching, but I pursued it after that day.
My name is Hailee Olsen, and I have known Mr. Saccocio for about 8 years now. He was my 8th grade history teacher, and I think that school year started back in 2014, so that'll be about 8 years now, so that's quite a while. I decided to stay in touch with him because he was quite a big help in my life back when I had him as just like a teacher, and I would occasionally like just stay after school during 8th grade when I had him and just talk to him instead of talking to like a guidance counselor or something like that. And he helped me through some very tough times, and I feel like I could go to him. He's so easy to talk to. I felt safe talking to him. Like, he was there to listen. He wasn't there to like say anything back if he didn't have to. And that meant a lot to me. So I just wanted to keep going back and visiting him. And he would always say, like, if there's anything you ever want to talk about, reach out. Do not hesitate to reach out. And that's why I've been in contact with him for so long, because he's kind of like a support system for me ever since that. So, yeah.
My name is Anita Serafini, and I've known Mr. Saccocio since I was in 8th grade, so that was 8 years ago. I don't keep in contact with Mr. Saccocio as much as I would like to, but I am busy and he is busy, but I know that I can always get in contact with him if I need to.
So I try and keep in contact with Mr. Saccocio quite a bit. I mean, when I was in high school, the high school and the middle school were on the exact same campus. So sometimes, like, after school, I would just walk on down to the middle school and go visit him. But obviously, when I graduated, that was few and far between after that, because I went up to college at SUNY Plattsburgh, and obviously I cannot just walk down to the middle school from Plattsburgh. So I would just kind of visit him when I would like visit home. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden, like, I couldn't visit him because the whole world was just quarantined, basically. And we didn't discover that we could do a call over like Zoom or Google Meet until a couple months into COVID. And we've started doing that. We try to do that like once a month just to kind of like catch up, see what's been going on in our lives. And we've been doing that pretty much ever since.
The reason why I came back to Mahassan was probably more financial than anything else. I had a job, fortunate, because the time that I got certified to become a teacher, it was very competitive. I remember the first time I actually interviewed here, there was 242 applicants. That number just stayed in my head. 242 applicants, and I'm humble enough to know that I'm not the best out of 242. But I came in second. This is just after I got certified. I'm like, okay. I was happy with that, even though I'd like to have landed the job. But I got offered a job at McLean Christian School, and I loved it. But it was extremely hard. I had to do 4 preparations a day, which is ridiculous. And it didn't pay anything. My wife and I newly married, and we're expecting a baby. And she worked at General Electric, and she had a pretty good job. But she told me, she goes, when I had this child, I want to stay home. So I'm working at McLean Christian Academy, and I remember the salary was $16,500 a year. Now that's okay if you're living with mom and dad and you don't have a car or anything, but I'm going to be the sole breadwinner for my family. So I took the job and I learned so much about teaching. I guess what I learned most was that I really loved it. I got a very good reaction from the students. But the principal at Draper Middle School, Dan Luca was his name, he called me because I had student taught here. And he said, hey, we have an opening, would you be interested? And I immediately felt like it was right. I immediately felt like I was certain of it. I'm like, yes. The previous job I had interviewed for in high school, I don't think that was a good fit for me. I don't think I'm a high school person. Some people told me they think I would be, but I don't. So when it was the middle school, I'm like, yeah. And I was able to get the job. And but if they had paid me a lot of money at McLean, I'd probably still be there. I really needed to earn the money. But now that I've been here for 29 years, I do feel like this is the place I was called to. I'm glad I stayed here for sure, yeah. Lots of challenge. This school has been, seen a lot of challenge, but I've been honored to be a part of it.
My name's Elijah Castiglia, and I am a current student of Mr. Saccocio's. Mr. Saccocio is really easygoing when he teaches. He doesn't try to force all the information at you at once. He really slows it down so we can actually understand everything, and that makes sense. He doesn't force the information at you, and he's just really kind when he teaches and all that.
Before I had Mr. Saccocio as a teacher, I actually was not that good in history. I distinctly remember 5th grade history, I would fall asleep. almost every class, which I'm not proud of. It's kind of funny looking back, but history was not my strong subject. It was one of my weaker ones. History and English kind of like those same levels, and even in 7th grade, right before I had him as a teacher, I got a little better. I wasn't sleeping in class anymore, but I didn't do my homework often, and which is not good. I just wasn't motivated. I didn't really care, I guess. History just was one of those, I don't care. I was more math and science. I was better at that, so I cared more about it. And going into 8th grade, when I had Mr. Saccocio as my history teacher, just the way he taught, he was very engaging to the students. When he assigned homework, it wasn't too much. It didn't feel like too much. And he would kind of block out time in class as well to finish at least some of the homework, which I genuinely liked, because I never liked going home doing homework. Who does, honestly? And so I think the combination of him being very engaging with his students and the subject he would teach in history and kind of giving that time to get the homework done, I actually wanted to excel in history, and I developed an interest, and I've enjoyed history ever since, honestly. And I think he kind of helped with that, because I went from, history, I just want to fall asleep, I don't want to do any work in it, to this is really interesting. Like, I'm actually interested in where the subject's going.
Like the winds that come from Canada, they get channeled right down. It's all flat and open here in the Great Plains, so they shoot down here.
I'm Jordan. I'm Mr. Saccocio's current student. Mr. Saccocio, like, he makes everything like less more, and like he doesn't pile work on you, and like he slows it down, but like not so much that it just isn't like, it's not boring, and he has a positive attitude throughout the class all the time.
What made Mr. Saccocio different from other teachers that I had was the fact that he was so available to his students. I always felt like I could go to him with anything that was going on in my life. If I needed any help with work, or if I just needed somebody to talk to, he was always there. And that was something that I didn't really have with many other teachers, so that was really special.
The average school day for me, I don't know if this makes sense to anybody who's not a teacher, but it's the same, but it's completely different. I mean, I have the same schedule. I mean, the bells are so regimented. The bells ring, I teach, and they stop. You think it'd be the same. I've been in the same room for like 25 years. So isn't that like confining? And it's not, because my clients, they're different every day. The students that come in here, they're different every year, but they're literally different every day. Honestly, in 25 minutes, kids are going to come in this room. I don't know what I'm going to get. I got a fairly good idea. I know this is the 4th week of school. I think I got a sense of who they are and a sense of the chemistry of the class, but you never know. They could come in, and you have to be ready for whatever comes your way. It's very, very unpredictable. Now, I like that at the end of the day, but at the beginning of the day, sometimes I wish I could, be certain that things were going to be smooth, but there's no guarantee. So every day is the same, but it can be very different.
I know that teachers have been facing a lot of challenges in the past couple of years with COVID, and I think one asset that is really valuable for a teacher to have is the power to be adaptive when it comes to educating their students. And I think Mr. Saccocio has always been very adaptive and truly cares about his students and making sure that they understand the course material. He has always, even before COVID, focused on fun, interactive lessons rather than just teaching straight out of the textbook. And I think this is super important and something that teachers should really think about moving forward, especially with how COVID has affected the education system.
It was challenging, not necessarily from my perspective. I mean, they say a lot of teachers burned out and wanted to leave the profession. I guess the numbers back that up. COVID was very challenging, but from a teaching perspective, and we had an empty room. a lot of cases, or we're teaching from home. And I found out that like physically and mentally, it wasn't as challenging for me as maybe it was for other people. What I do concede though is that the learning decreased. Kids are in their living rooms. They have you on a screen. We didn't really have it established that they had to have their screens up. Sometimes we're looking at their avatars. And if you have 30 kids in a room, you don't know who's paying attention and who's not. Now, we've all been on Google Meets and Skypes, and you can drift, right? As adults. So I think you're attempting to teach like you would in the classroom, but the impact was less. And so that's when they finally came back. After 2 years, there's a deficit there, and we're working to make that up. But for me personally, it didn't really take its toll on me, other than the fact that I know that learning's not happening like it should or could. I think it's going back to the way it was. The idea of putting a mask on and spacing out the kids, it seems already like kind of foreign. It's like, did we really do that? I really feel like we're back to normal at this point.
Mr. Saccocio gives you time to do the work and like doesn't rush you to do it when other teachers like the National Park slide, like they would give you like a week to do it, and we've had like a week and a half or 2 weeks to do it. Like he actually gives you time to focus on doing work and doesn't rush you to do it. So.
I think knowing him has impacted my life because when he would check in with me, he was kind of like my school father. He would always be concerned for me. He'd always ask me how I am, how my life is going. He'd also ask about my family as well. And a lot of the time when we would meet or even just do like a Zoom call, he'd always ask me like, okay, well, you're going to college now. What's your diet like? How are you doing in your classes? And he would just ask stuff like that. And it kind of like motivates me to be better than I guess I would be if I didn't know him, maybe. It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, he's been there since 2014, and if he wasn't there, I really just can't imagine where I would be without that, if it would be the same, if it would be different. I think it would be different, though, to just kind of wrap that up. I think it would be different. I don't think I would be as motivated to eat healthier, even exercise, and try and keep my grades at like a good standing so I could actually tell him like, I did this, I'm doing well, and him being like happy that I'm doing well.
Mr. Saccocio had a tremendous impact on my confidence in speaking in class. He set up his classroom in a way that students want to engage, want to speak up, even if they're not entirely sure that what they're saying is going to be right, but they want to take a shot at it. And this has really helped me and stuck with me every year since 8th grade. And I now, in my senior year of college, still feel really motivated to speak up in class. And I think that really comes from his teaching and my experience in his class.
He's a really good teacher.
Mr. Saccocio is one of the best teachers I've ever had.
And then once I eat all the vegetation, knowing that I made a positive, lasting impact on my students, if that is true, then it's just deeply satisfying and deeply rewarding, and I mean that long term. There's times even now where I'm out doing something, I'm hiking or doing something in my yard or something, and I'll get this deep sense of satisfaction. It's a wonderful job. It's a legacy job, and I get to have students like you. And not only that, not only do I know I have satisfaction if I impacted them positively, but then they get it back. Like they do great things, they become successful, and you become friends. And so it's, I don't know, it's like without peer. I don't know what else type of job is like that, where you have like 10 months of like deep, solid connection. You're a daily connection. You can really get to know somebody. And then the fact that they tell you years later that you had an impact on your life, I love it. Embrace it. A lot of people think about it, aspire to become teachers. They'll even tell me I'm thinking about becoming a teacher. And one of the things I tell them right away is like, look, people are going to try to talk you out of it immediately without even knowing what your heart is or what your motivation is. And it's like, teaching is this and it's this. And that's true for some people. It's the last thing. I tell people I'm an 8th grade teacher. You know, that's crazy. It's like a sentence. But if you're really called to it, then it makes total sense. So I tell them to make sure, really think hard about it. But if you're called to it, don't be discouraged, don't be swayed. People will try to talk you out of it, and they'll say things like the money, which I don't think the money's that bad. They'll say things like, the way the kids are today, and it's very challenging for sure, but it is still rewarding. I tell them that. It's still extremely rewarding. So yeah, I just gotta encourage them like crazy. Go for it. But I do also think that not everybody goes into it for the right reasons. I just hear people say, I like to schedule, and it's like, that's not going to be enough for you. You have to like being in that classroom, and you have to embrace all the messiness. It's very messy, and still see the value in it. If they can do that, then I tell them go for it.
Yeah, Mr. Saccocio is retiring at the end of this year. It's a little sad knowing that he's a great teacher, and a lot of the students who will be going into 8th grade in the future will not have him as a teacher. He's been there for quite a while, and if he wants to retire, move to something else, then I think that's a good thing. It's not entirely sad that he is retiring. It's just more of a next step to his life, and I was glad that I could get to know him while he was teaching still, and still keep in touch with him for almost a decade since I've had him as a teacher.
I'm super happy that Mr. Saccocio is retiring because he does deserve it. He worked really hard and educated so many students. But it is kind of really sad, and I do hope that in the future, Mahonison has plenty more Mr. Saccocios walking through their doors.
Retirement, how do I feel about it? I feel good. I feel good. I thought about it hard. I didn't just emotionally jump into this decision. But last year was a good indicator for me. I had a student teacher who was just a really good guy. Fun, kids really took to him. He got a magnetic personality, and he's going to be a very good teacher. He's teaching in Brooklyn. Visited yesterday. A bunch of kids came down from 9th grade, wanted to see him. And I said to myself, if Caleb was teaching this year, he would be fine. The school's not gonna fall down. There's people that can replace you, and it's just true. I know that I will leave and I'll be forgotten like every other teacher. And I felt really good about that. There's good people coming up, and they'll fill whatever kind of little tiny void that created in my absence. So I'm comfortable with it. And 31 years is a long time. And I really want to go out when I'm still enjoying it. I don't want to decline or have that grouchy exterior, waited too long. I don't want that. I want to go out where I could come back another year and maybe really enjoy it. So I'm pretty solid, 99% sure this is the year.